Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Let me first begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, and I am very pleased today to be joined by my colleagues from Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, members of Parliament Lena Dobb, Mike Holloway, Darren Fisher, Andy Fillmore, Jaime Batiste, Jenica Atwin, Wayne Long, and Cody Blois. There are currently active wildfires in British Columbia, Alberta, and the Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario, as well as New Brunswick. And we are very concerned about the fires that we have seen develop over the past few days in Nova Scotia, particularly on the weekend. And over the next week, our data shows that fire risk will remain very high or even extreme for the Northern Prairies, for northeastern British Columbia, the southern parts of the Northwest Territories, well into the weekend. On Saturday, we approved an extension request from the province of Alberta. There are now currently over 200 Canadian Armed Forces members currently deployed in the province supporting response efforts and logistics. Additional federal supports from the original request for federal assistance will continue to be provided as previously arranged under the respective mandates of the various federal departments engaged, including the RCMP, Transport Canada, PHAC, ESDC, and Indigenous Services Canada. And to date, the matching campaign for the province of Alberta and the Canadian Red Cross has raised a total of $21.3 million with federal and provincial matching. As I mentioned earlier, we are following the wildfires impacting other provinces and territories closely, and we stand ready with federal support if and when requested. Earlier today, I spoke to Minister John Lohr in Nova Scotia and to Mike Savage, the Mayor of Halifax, last night in order to offer our support directly, and our officials at the Government Operations Centre are fully engaged. I also had a conversation earlier this morning with Rick Perkins down in Shelburne County about some of the fires impacting in the communities he represents. We know that several thousand Nova Scotians have been displaced, and I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that Nova Scotians, as we might expect, have opened up their hearts and their doors to allow their fellow citizens in this extremely difficult time. As well, we also know disproportionately First Nations are often impacted, and for example, the Suba-Ganadai First Nation in Nova Scotia issued an evacuation order for 20 of their residents yesterday evening. They have now been all relocated and everyone is safe, and no further support is being requested by the community at this time. I've spoken to my colleague, Mr. Haidu's office, and they have been in touch with the Assembly First Nation Regional Chief Prosper this morning, and Indigenous Services Canada is coordinating closely with officials on the ground to mobilize all resources needed through the Emergency Management Assistance Program. While our greatest relief is that so far there have been no casualties reported in this fire season, we are reminded that last week firefighter Frankie Bayo's serious injury in Alberta reminds us of the incredibly dangerous work that our first responders are undertaking. Our thanks, as always, go out to the firefighters, first responders, search and rescue personnel, and the incredible community volunteers who are working to manage these fires and to support Canadians who have been forced to evacuate their homes and their communities. I'll now turn to my parliamentary secretary, Stéphane Lauzon, to provide remarks in French.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Minister. Bonjour à tous. Comme l'a dit le ministre Blair, il y a actuellement des feux de forêt en Colombie-Britannique, en Alberta, au territoire du Nord-Ouest, en Saskatchewan, Manitoba, en Ontario, Nouveau-Brunswick, et nous sommes extrêmement préoccupés par les incendies que nous avons vus se développer en Nouvelle-Écosse au cours de la fin de semaine. Nos données nous montrent qu'au cours de la semaine prochaine, le risque d'incendie restera très élevé ou extrêmement dans le nord des prairies, le nord-est de la Colombie-Britannique et le sud du territoire du Nord-Ouest jusqu'à la fin de la semaine prochaine. Donc, samedi, nous avons approuvé une demande de prolongation de la part de la province d'Alberta, plus de 200, environ 240. Depuis dimanche, les membres des Forces armées canadiennes sont actuellement déployés dans la province pour soutenir les efforts d'intervention et de logistique. Les aides fédérales supplémentaires demandées à l'origine contribueront d'être fournies comme prévu dans le cadre des mandats respectifs de divers ministères et organismes fédéraux, notamment la GRC, Transport Canada, la SPC, ESDC et les services autochtones Canada. À ce jour, la campagne de jumelage de dons avec la province d'Alberta et la Croix-Rouge canadienne a permis de recueillir un total de 21,3 millions de dollars, comme le dit le ministre, grâce aux contributions fédérales et provinciales. Donc, nous suivons de très près les incendies de forêt qui touchent d'autres provinces et le territoire, et nous tenons prêts à intervenir en cas de demande d'aide fédérale. Et le ministre Blair s'est entendu avec le ministre Lauzon en Nouvelle-Écosse ce matin et avec le maire Savage à Halifax hier soir pour leur offrir directement notre soutien. Et nos fonctionnaires du Centre des opérations du gouvernement sont mobilisés. Merci. Minister.
Thank you very much. And as we have all strongly indicated, we will do everything we can to support the people of Canada as they are being impacted by this extremely challenging wildfire season. We're working very closely in collaboration with our provincial, territorial, and municipal partners right across the country. And it is, frankly, an all-hands-on-deck response to the challenges that people are facing. I'll happily take any questions briefly because we have to go back into the House.
Are you concerned about wearing out the resources? I mean, we're not even at the end of May. We've been fighting these fires for 6 weeks or longer now. They seem to just be getting worse. Are you concerned about wearing out the number of resources we have before the summer is over?
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge the incredible work that particularly our firefighters have been doing right across Canada. We have seen people mobilizing from across the country to fight wildfires in Alberta and Northwest Territories, and now those fires are now impacting right across the country. Those people have been doing extraordinary work, but they have been working almost nonstop. Even the firefighter crews that are currently battling fires in Nova Scotia, some of them have been on those fires and on that scene from the very outset of this event and haven't had an opportunity to take a break. So of course we're concerned. It's one of the reasons we recognize that it's important to make sure that we can mobilize those resources from across the country, and important work has been done in moving firefighters from places where they have not been required to other places where they have, particularly in Alberta. We've also made efforts to recruit and bring in firefighters from other countries who are providing assistance. But quite frankly, the fire season that Canada is facing right now is extremely challenging, and we recognize there is a need for more trained firefighters. It's one of the reasons we're making an investment in training 1,000 additional firefighters. But in fact, the reality is those firefighters are required now, and I am very concerned for the health, safety of the people that are doing this incredibly important job for us.
What's your message to people who've lost their homes so far in the fires and whose homes are threatened in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick?
First of all, I would strongly encourage everyone to listen very carefully to the warnings being issued by local officials when they are asked to evacuate, that they should be prepared to do so quickly, and to make sure that they have the essentials and things that are very important to them so that they can leave quickly in response to those evacuation orders. But I also want to provide them with reassurance that Canada and our provincial and territorial partners will be there in support of those individuals who have lost their homes and been so significantly impacted by these events. We'll work very closely with the province to help rebuild those communities that have been destroyed and those homes that have been destroyed. We'll be there to make sure that we help people who are going to need our help. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Back into the House.